Hello everyone, this is Aidan Ermy, the owner and poster on MyCloud website. Today I'm going to go over an issue that an associate of mine ran into when attempting to deploy Office 365 ProPlus using Sccm. So I've written a blog article already here about this, but I thought I'd record a video just to give everyone something else to kind of take a look at and help follow along in case you get stuck. So here's the article. Feel free to read through my steps here and comment and share that as well. So the issue here is my associate was following this TechNet article, which I'll show you right here, which explicitly is telling us how to deploy Office 365, or O365 for short, using Sccm, specifically Config Manager. So in this article, we're actually going to go through the steps that Microsoft has provided for us. Please note the last time it was modified, so just maybe about 3 or 4 days ago. So the information may change as well. They may correct the issue that we are encountering, but for now, this is the issue with following this article. So we're going to start by following these steps here that they've laid out, just so we can kind of follow along, identify where the problem is, and how we can work around that. So the first step that Microsoft has us do is prepare the installation files so that we can use that through Config Manager. So it says to get started, we want to download the Office deployment tool. And then after we've downloaded that tool, use that tool to download the Office 365 installation files. So let's start with that. So to download the Office deployment tool, you just search that. You should come to here. Don't worry that it says Office 2013 deployment tool for Click to Run. Click to Run is the new way Office will be provided going forward, because this still works with Office 2016, which is newly released, as well as Office 365. So we're going to download this tool, and it should be fairly quick. There we go. So now it's done. So if we take a look here, so right now I'm actually on my Config Manager server here. Now you'll notice specifically I'm running Config Manager 2016 TP3, so Technical Preview 3. So not using 2012 R2. This is the next version coming out. So we've downloaded the file, and this is what it looks like. Now, of course, if it gets updated or changed, then the ending numbers here, presumably the build reference or version reference, will change, but ultimately this is what it shows. So if we go back to the article, so we've done this first piece. So basically, now that we have this, we have to run that exe. So we'll just run that as admin. And we accept the license terms because, of course, we always do. Hit continue, and now it's basically asking us where we want to extract these files to. So I'm going to put it in the same directory, in my downloads directory, but I'm going to make a new folder just to keep everything more organized, called O365. And hit OK, and we're done. So now the first piece is done. It's extracted the files. If you take a look, we have a setup exe and a configuration.xml file. Back on the TechNet article, now that we have that information, we need to use this tool to download the Office 365 files. So this article here, TechNet article, goes here in walking you through how to use the deployment tool to do this. Now, there's some other variations as far as like to file shares and so forth, but I don't have a file share in my environment that I'm going to use, so I'll just use a local directory. So basically what we have to do is run the setup exe, put /download to the location we want the content to be downloaded to. and then also the path to that configuration file. Now, we have to make a quick change though. If we take a look at the XML file, if you're familiar with reading or seeing other XML files, or any type of file like that, you'll notice that this beginning piece here means that this line is actually commented out. So in fact, if we were to run this process, setup.exe/download, and then point to that XML file, nothing will happen because we're not telling it what products, what client version, what information we want to receive. So we have to make a change here. So I've already prepared the file accordingly to what I want to use. Notice it has Visio in here as well. I don't need that. One thing you'll notice in my modified version, we're removing this line here, source path. There's a mention of that in the article, in this article here, that you need to remove that source path line. It says it right here. You don't include the source path because we're using Sccm, and the source path is a GUID that's dynamically created when it copies the content down to the client. So we can't give it a hard-coded path. So we need to remove that piece. So I'm going to modify this XML file. So I'll take out all of this, just replace it with this. So we're doing Office ProPlus, doing it in English in this case, and display level none, so we don't necessarily need to see anything happen in front as far as the user is concerned when it's installing on their system, and therefore we want to automatically accept the end user license agreement so the customer or the client isn't prompted for that. Additionally, from the default, we've just added in the temp logging section. I just put O365.log just to identify explicitly that this is the log file used in the configuration for any troubleshooting. So I'm going to save that change. There. So now what we need to do, again, following the TechNet article, before we get to the config manager piece, we need to run the setup, and so we can download those files. So again, that has to do with here, setup.exe/download, and then the path to the file. So we're going to do that. We're just going to copy that path. Quick note, just in case you're not aware, something I learned a few years back from someone. I didn't know this either. If you just right-click on something, you see it doesn't say copy as path, but maybe it's some buried long path and it's hard to kind of find or something. If you hold Shift and right-click on any file or folder, you'll have this option as copy as path. So it kind of helps when you have to, use command prompt or something in that capacity. So we're going to open an administrative command prompt. Let's move it over here a little bit. So we're going to change directory to that location. I don't need to go straight to the exe. So now I'm in this directory right here. And we're going to go setup.exe/download. And then we need the path to the configuration file. So again, I'm going to do copy as path. You can probably do / for local, but just for fun, we'll do that. I'll hit enter. Notice you hit enter. There's nothing returned yet because it's downloading content right now. And we have this Office folder. If we take a look, inside there we have the data folder, and it's starting to download the bits for that. You can even kind of watch its progress if we open up our internet connection, right? We see it's receiving data. So the last time I did this, it took maybe approximately 20-25 minutes or so to download. It might have been just a slow internet connection in my case, but obviously I'm not going to let you sit through that. So I'm just going to pause the video, and I will resume it once the download has completed. Okay, so now we're back, and the download is done. And before we continue, I just want to inform you, I made a slight mistake in that XML config file. If we go back and take a look at it, I actually forgot to add a piece to that, which didn't download all of the content required. So if we take a look here, this piece here, add, even though we're not going to include the source path, we do need to include the Office client reference for it to download all of the content. So my apologies. You have to go back and we'll just add that in. So we'll copy that, and that we'll put that before the product reference. We'll take out the source path. And then we have to put a closing add, just like XML and HTML and such, around that, and then the rest is fine. So sorry, you're going to have to go back and add that element, and then rerun the command, the setup exe download to that XML file for it to download all the files. My apologies. So if you do that, you don't have to delete what you already have. It'll check it and continue on. You'll see we have 2 cab files here and a directory. Again, this is a version reference, so it can change at any time, of course. And inside there, we have multiple cab files and 2 dat files. So these are, you can see by the size that these are the installation element. So you should have multiple items listed there, right? 32-bit, 64-bit, that type of thing. Okay, so now that we have that content downloaded, we need to make a package in Sccm, or an application, which is the new methodology if you're using 2012 and above. So I have this just inside my download directory, which is fine. Normally in a production type environment, you'd want to, of course, move that to a file share specific to Sccm applications and packages. But for the purpose of this demonstration, we don't have to worry about that. Okay, so if we go into Sccm, under Software Library, and under Application Management, Applications, we're going to make a new application. So you can right-click here, you can right-click here, you can click the button up here, whatever you prefer. Create application. Now, because the installation, if we go back to the directory that holds all our content files, because it's an exe and not an MSI, if you take a look at the list of install types, you will not see exe listed in this list. So in order to work with exes, we have to choose manual, and we have to do a few extra steps to do so. So click manual for the application and click next. So here in the name, we're just going to type Office365. You can Microsoft, and if you want to be specific and or fancy, you can copy and put the software version. Not required, but you can do so, whatever you need to do in your specific to your environment. Go ahead next. So then here you can put, again, additional information. It's optional for the catalog, links to documentation, or like online help for Microsoft. You can put keywords. You can even put the fancy little icon here to make it look nice, which I'm actually going to pause the video and go and download one just so you can make it look a little bit nicer for you. So I'll be right back. Okay. So I've added the icon just because I like it to look nice. I just searched up Office 365 icon, and then you just browse and point it to the icon file. There's various different image type versions that are allowed to work with this. just because I like it to look nice. All right, next. We are going to come back to the deployment type. The reason why, normally you can kind of go through it here and go through that process. However, if we're following this documentation from Microsoft, just to kind of, so it's easy to follow along if you're going to watch the video and go through the TechNet article. And they have it split out between application and deployment type, two separate things. So I followed the same methodology in my blog post with screenshots for it as well. So we're just going to do the same thing just to make sure we're following the same methodology to keep things clear. So on the deployment type, we choose next per the TechNet article here, and summary is next. And once it's done, just take a moment, then we'll hit close, and then we have the application. Then we'll have to move on to the deployment type. All right, so success. So if we go into the console, we see Office 365. Now you see the icon here doesn't look like that nice little icon that I put in. That's fine. We don't care about that there as much. Actually, I'm not sure exactly how to change it there. The icon we put in is in reference to what the customer, the end user, will see in Software Center. So a lot of the time, I like to put the icons in with the application that I put in, because sometimes the end user can more easily or readily identify the application by the icon. It just makes it easier for your end users. Okay, so now that we've gone through and added the application in following the Microsoft TechNet article, we're going to create the deployment type. So again, in the console under the software library applications, we have our entry for our application. And so now we're going to choose create deployment type. Again, you can right click on it as well. There's different ways to do it. All options go there. Now again, because we're using an EXE and not an MSI or other methodology, again, you won't see EXE listed in here. We're actually going to use the script installer option, because this is how we can leverage EXEs within the package. So we'll choose script installer and choose next. We have to give it a name. So in the TechNet article, I don't believe it kind of tells you what kind of to put in there. Enter a name, right? Any optional name, then hit next. So we'll go back here. So we'll go 365 EXE installer, and I'll show you where that looks, how that looks differently. Again, languages, descriptive comments specific to your needs and your environment. Hit next. So on the content page, following the TechNet article, content location. So this is where the installer, so in our case the EXE, is located. Again, normally speaking, in a production Sccm environment, you'll have a file share that you'll point to for all the source content that Sccm will leverage. But in our example, just to go through this issue, we are just going to directly point it to the installation folder. So it is within Office 365, not inside the Office folder itself into data there, but where that EXE is sitting, which is in the O365 folder. So we will select that folder. And then for the installation program, notice that the TechNet article says here we want to put setup.exe space / configure space configuration XML, and that basically tells it from this root directory, the setup.exe is here, and it should look for the configuration in the file in the same directory. So if we go to here, we'll just pop that in there. There's other options to do something similar for uninstallation, but we're not going to worry about that in this case. And it says after you put that in, hit next. So we'll do that. Oh, sorry, it does need a UNC, my bad. I need to put a UNC specific, even though it's on my same system. So my system name, TP3, $C. And if I hit browse, then I can navigate a little bit faster from there. Under my domain account, download Office 365. There, sorry. And we'll hit next. There we go. Here is where the fun begins, and this is also where the issue lies. So we're on the detection method, step number 6 here on the TechNet article, and it says add clause. So we will hit add clause. So as the TechNet article here shows in its screenshot, the one and only screenshot available here, we're going to choose registry because that's what we're going to look against. The hive that we're going against is local machine. And it says in the text box here, we're going to enter this specific key. So we'll just copy and paste that in here. Notice from the screenshot here, there's nothing in the value, and they have this checkbox selected, use default registry key value for detection. We're going to check that off. Also notice that the TechNet article does not tell you in its written steps what to do for data type, though the screenshot shows string. So that's maybe something they forgot to just type out, but we're going to make ours exactly the same and then hit OK per the instructions. So now we have our detection method, and now we can hit next. For installation, so user experience, this is the step we're on here. We're going to choose install for system. And it doesn't, again, explicitly state what to choose for logon requirement or visibility, but in my experience with Sccm, we 99% of the time will choose whether or not a user is logged in. So that way, if you're pushing out software to your environment, to your end users overnight, for example, so that everyone gets the upgrade right away, and then the next day they have it, people aren't logged in over excuse me, over the evening, so you want to push the install and allow it to install on the system even if no one's logged in. Program visibility, you can minimize or hide it, but I'm just going to leave the default at normal. You can also specify if you have more accurate details on how long it's allowed to run, but we'll leave all this at the default because it doesn't take that long anyways. And then we'll hit next. Requirements, there's no specific requirements that the TechNet article mentions. You can limit it based on like OS, so device, and you can choose operating system, and it's only going to be, you know, Windows 10, Windows 7, whatever. You can have a lot of granularity over that, but we don't need to do any of that in this instance, so we'll just hit next. Again, for dependencies, there's no dependencies in this, like prereqs, like C++ or Silverlight or any of those other little bits and pieces that might be required for some apps. In this case, this is not the case, so we'll just hit next. And next on the summary tells us everything we put in. And we will let that finish. Okay, and now we have it done. So we'll hit close. So now we're on to this next step on distributing the application to our DP in Sccm. So again, we're going to follow these steps and go through them kind of quickly, but the details are in the TechNet article. I have screenshots for it on my blog post, specifically if you need some assistance in walking through it. But we will basically distribute our content. Basically, next. And then when we get to content destination, we need a distribution point or group. I only have one in my lab, so we'll choose the one. And next, let it finish. Done, very quick. And we can take a look. We want to take a look at the status of the content being distributed. So once it's been done, once we've gone through that first initial step, if we go to monitoring and distribution status, content status, here is our application. Just refresh, make sure, and it's already there because it's super small and it's all localized in my lab, so it's super fast. So we just confirmed that, yep, okay, we have the content available on our distribution point, which is what Sccm will use when it deploys the application. So now we need to actually deploy the application to a system to test and see where this issue actually lies. So if we go back to the Software Center, find our application, the content has been distributed, and we're going to right-click or select it and choose Deploy, and we're going to deploy it to a specific collection. Now remember, when we made the installation type, we said install for system, not for user. So we need to choose a device collection specifically. So I'm going to choose Windows 10. This is just a collection I made for my Windows 10 workstation. That's sitting in there. Hit next. Again, it already shows our distribution point that we've already specified, but maybe if we have any additional ones that maybe it wasn't replicated to or originally sent to, we can add those there if needed. We're going to choose next. Let's just take a quick look at the TechNet article. So we've done this part. We've done this whole part, sorry, this distribution part, and it's green, so it's been distributed. Now here we're deploying it. So we've gone past step 1 and 2 and 3. We've selected the collection, deployment settings, purpose, select required. Now this is where we're at. Maybe I didn't hit next, sorry. There we go. So deployment settings. Let's move this over a little bit. So in the TechNet article, it says in the purpose, select required. I'm not going to do this just so I can initiate the install and watch the log files and show you the log files once it's been initiated right away, just so we can have a little bit more control over that. You can make it install, uninstall, depending on what you want to do. If it's for a user, you can make it required or not required in here again. But in this case, I'm just going to make it available so we can easily see the logs in time to identify the issue. You can schedule if you want it available in the future at a certain time and not right away. We want it to go right away. So we'll hit next there. User experience. You can choose what to kind of show in the Software Center, like only if there's needs a restart, or show all. I'm going to choose show all in this example again, so we can more easily watch it and identify and see what's happening. I'll hit next. I don't, in this case, care about alerts or my integration with Sccm in this case for this example, but you can feel free to select any of that as required in your environment. So here's our summary, right? The information that we've put together for the app, the collection that it's going against, and I have one system in there. It's an install and available, so just take a look, make sure it looks okay. Hit next, let that finish, and we're good. So we'll hit close. So we've done that here. So we're all the way at step 8. So now we need to see it in our other system. If we just stay on the console of Sccm, if we go to deployment types, or sorry, deployments at the bottom, now we see here it's deployed to this collection, it's available, install, and compliance is 0 because we don't have, we haven't installed it yet. So we're going to switch over to the Windows 10 VM right here. So here's my software center on this system. You notice it hasn't shown up here. So to kind of kick it, to make it work a little bit faster, to check right away instead of wait the hour that the client or the agent needs to communicate with Sccm, if you go into Control Panel under System and Security, there should be an entry for Configuration Manager if you've installed the client on the system, which I have. So when you open that applet, yes, this is called an applet, and go to the Actions tab, we have all these different actions. To force the system to recheck with Sccm right away, look for new apps, look for updates, anything that you're pushing down, select Machine Policy and hit Run Now, and User Policy and Run Now. And give that a few minutes, and if you noticed here, we can close that, minimize this, see, new software available. Here's our entry for Office 365. See the little icon? Nice little look here. That's where we specified that icon in the other, in the application details itself. This is where the customer, the end user, will see it, so it's a little bit nicer than that generic icon. They can more easily or quickly identify it. That's the only reason why I like to put the icon in there. So we have our version, our information about this. So before we click to install this, I'm going to show you a couple of things. First and foremost, if you remember on that TechNet article, if we bring it back up here, scroll up a little bit. So it's looking in this registry key. So in the uninstall registry key in the Windows, it'll have an entry for Office 365 once we do the install. Now, remember that it said to check off use default registry key value for detection. So what is this default registry key value? Well, if you look in the registry on basically any system pretty much, almost every entry, almost every key, so you see I'm under local machine, software, Microsoft, Windows, current version, uninstall, into this directory. This is where that entry for Office will show up. You look at this example here, this is a config manager client, but there's this default key right here. So it says default in brackets, there's no value. Not every registry key will have a default string entry like that here. Most will, but not all of them. But in this case, it's saying use that key, that value, to confirm that it's installed. So in this case, it will have it. So why? But this is the problem that you'll see, that it does not detect it, even though we're telling it to use that key per the TechNet article. So another quick thing I want to kind of get up and ready to go. I'm on my Windows 10 system, and I'm in the C drive, Windows, Sccm, and logs. In here is where we'll watch the log file to be able to see that it's doing the install, but then also it does not discover that it's there when it's done. So the log file we want to take a look at is the app enforce log, which we don't quite see yet. It will show up when we start to do the install. We can take a look at the app discovery one as well. So we see initially when it did that eval, when we kicked it off and Office 365 showed up in Software Center, it shows it's performing the detection for this, and it doesn't app not discovered. So did not detect application, and this is that installer, that reference that we put in, deployment type. So now what we're going to do, we're going to just get this queued up, ready to go, so that we can watch it happen. And we're going to choose our application, and we're going to click Install Selected. So now it's going to start downloading the content. So let's take a look at a couple of the log files while it's downloading that content. So actually, let's make this a bit bigger so we can kind of see things in the background. So again, it didn't discover it. Install will continue after it downloads the content. Now it shows that it's installing. If we go back here, now we have an app enforce log file. So let's open up that one while it says it's installing. So it's starting the enforcement for the installation. The user's logged in. It's going through here. Here's the command line. So notice the command line that we use, setup.exe/configure, and the configuration XML. And it's downloaded the installation files to the cache, the Sccm cache for the client. And now we're just waiting for it to complete. So the installation itself for Office may take a little bit of time depending on, performance on the system you're installing it on, bandwidth for copying the content down, and so forth. But to kind of prove and show that it's actually installing, while it's downloading, or rather while it's installing, you can actually see under all applications on my Windows 10 box that it hasn't quite shown up yet. It should start to show up in a few minutes and start listing out the Word, Excel, and things of that nature. So I'll come back to that in a moment. And what I'm going to do, I'm just going to pause the video while it progresses through that. And we see we have the wonderful blue donut going on here. So maybe it's showing up now. There we go. You see how Word recently added, it just actually power cycled through all those. Word, PowerPoint, Outlook, so forth, starting to show up here under Office here. So now we're installing it. And yes, it says 2013. Because the Office 365 bits that we used were specific to Office 2013, not the new Office 2016 that just recently was released. So again, I'm going to pause the video. You see it's waiting to finish 1020, almost 1021 in this process. Same thing over here. I'm going to pause the video, wait for it to finish its cycle through, and then we can continue, and I'll show you where it's installed, but not actually discovering it's actually present. So we'll be back in a few minutes. Okay, and we're back. So it only took a few minutes or so. So notice here, first and foremost, in the Software Center, it shows application failed to install. If we take a look at the log files, so app discovery, right, it didn't go anything beyond that, so we can close that. But the app enforce log is where you want to take a look. Excuse me. So hang on, sorry, one sec. Sorry about that. So we left off here when it was waiting for the process to finish. So it only took maybe about 5 minutes beyond that. So we see that the process terminated with exit code 0. So if you're familiar with Sccm and packages and so forth, exit code 0 means it completed successfully. It's done. There's no issue. So it looks for exit code 0, and notice matched exit code 0 to a success entry in the exit codes table. So it actually successfully installed the software. Again, if we take a look in the Start menu, we have our recently added apps. You can go back, scroll down to Office, and we have all of the Office software listed here. And we can even open one up. Let's find Word, because that's our easiest to work with for a default. Confirm that, yep, it starts up. Of course, it asks for an activation, and I'm not going to activate it because it's a demo. But here we go. That's fine. Here's our Word is up and running. It's just not activated. So it actually installed the software. But notice in the app enforce log, after it completed the installation, it performed the detection per what we put in from the TechNet article, where it's using that default registry entry, and it's saying its app is not discovered. So it's not finding it. If we take a look at the registry now, we refresh this, we now have that entry specific to that TechNet article. So local machine software, Microsoft Windows, current version, uninstall, O365 ProPlus Retail, English US. So we have that key, and you see it does have a default in brackets, registry value item there in that key. So we followed the TechNet article, and it says use this to determine that it's there. But for whatever reason, it doesn't work. Remember also, I'm doing this on Sccm 2016 TP3, so it's still an issue going forward. So I don't know if it's an issue in relation to any attempt to use that default registry value or just specific to this. So it says it couldn't find it. Software Center says, nope, not there. But obviously, we saw that the software was installed, and we see the entry here, right here in the registry. So what can we do? Well, we have a couple different options. We could use one of these other different references in the registry. So we could maybe use this key for the specific version that we're installing, or this key for the display name. Anything else that's listed in here will actually work, and I've tested it. But a simpler method to work without, changing it, especially say the version, because versions change with patches and updates and so forth a lot quicker now. We can actually go back to our SCCM environment. So again, this is the key that we use. This is what it told us to use. If we go back to SCCM and we take a look at our deployment type. So under Software Library, Application, find our app, Deployment Type tab. If we right click and go to Properties, we can go and take a look and see our detection methods right here. So we'll choose Edit. Again, this is exactly what we followed per the TechNet article. So here's the solution that works and is the simplest or the fastest to kind of do it, instead of trying to find, okay, it's in this key, it's this value, getting the right thing in there. All you have to do is unselect this. So deselect the use default registry key value for detection. Don't worry that now you can type something in the value. We don't even need to add anything in that location. So if we click OK and click OK again, so we've made that change to our package. We need to update the content on the distribution point, which then goes down to the client for it to know that we've made a change to it. We didn't change any like EXEs or any of the configuration or the actual installation, but we've changed how Sccm confirms and detects that the application is present. So we will choose yes. We're going to, so again, we just right click on it, or you select it and choose update content and choose yes. So it refreshes the content on the distribution point. We can go and take a look. Content status. So again, it's still just sitting at 10 p.m., which it's not. So we want it to show us that it's successfully updated it here. So just give that a minute. So I'm just going to pause the video just while I wait for it to show here that it's been updated, last updated to around 10:30 here. Oh, there it goes. Never mind. So now 10:33, it's been updated. So if we go back to our Sccm client on our Windows 10 box, let's just minimize our registry. It still says failed here because the Sccm client has not returned back to Sccm to get any updated information. Even if you hit refresh, it may go back, but not necessarily. So again, to jump start or kick that process off a little bit faster to see the difference, to make sure it works, we'll go back into our control panel, back into the config manager applet, and kick off the machine and user policy, which are the default elements for it to communicate from Sccm. And if you notice quickly, it just changed to installed. We go back here. It performs the detection. Actually, it didn't there. Hang on. That's the enforcement, sorry. So it says installed in Software Center right away. If we go into the discovery log, we should see, if it decides not to freeze on me, executing our query right at 10:34. So after it's updated the difference to that package from the Sccm server, performing app discovery or detection, discovered application, and now it's there. So obviously it was there. It just changed this status to installed. And so no restart is required on the workstation, on the system at all. It's just that weird oddity specific to that registry key, which we followed in the TechNet article right here. It says use default, but this, for whatever reason, doesn't work. So there you have it. Hopefully that's been useful to you. If there's any other details that I missed or someone wants further explanation, please feel free to email me. My contact info is on my About Me page. And like the video, share it with anyone, like the post on my blog. And if you have any requests for other blog posts or other topics, I have lots of people that subscribe and email me directly saying, oh, I need help with this. And I'll go and do it in my lab, and I'll write a blog post for them. And depending on my time, I'll also do a video per that. So hopefully that's been helpful for everyone. Please feel free to visit my website and subscribe and share this information with anyone else that you may know that's trying to deploy Office 365 with Sccm, and it's continuing to say it's not installed when it actually does successfully install. Until next time, my name is Aidan Ermey for MyCloud. Thank you.